Hello, welcome back to another episode. Um, Kind of a funny story how our guest came to be, which was she found our podcast. And then I think you commented or you reached out to us, but basically it almost gave up on us because we were so in the fog at the beginning of the podcast. And as we went on, she could see us kind of clear up. So since then, she's been a really loyal listener and lots of interaction. So with that, here is Daphne Keys. Welcome, Daphne.
Welcome, Daphne.
Hi, ladies.
Nice to have you.
I'm glad
Finally.
to be here. Finally, yeah. A little bit of rescheduling.
Fine.
Yeah.
So we're basically just going to jump in and say, how are you here? What's your adoption story? And start from there.
Well, it depends on what part of the story you want. It's really long and twisted. I guess I'll start with before reunion. So I was born in 1962 in Maryland, and I was placed for adoption immediately. And the story goes that I was taken to a foster home and that the social worker dropped me off and told them my name was Daphne. And one of the children in the foster home said, "Oh, I don't like that name. I think I'll call her Debbie." So they started calling me Debbie.
Huh.
And I was there until I was almost 2. I was considered unadoptable.
Why were you considered? Yeah, why?
Because my eyes were crossed.
Oh my gosh.
So I was, defective merchandise. So my foster parents, one of their oldest daughter, had a biological son, and she was having trouble conceiving due to some health issues. So she said, "Well, I don't want her to sit here. So how about if we just adopt her and take her home?" So my foster parents became my grandparents. The person who changed my name became my aunt. So
and you're Daphne now, so you've taken that back. I guess that's later in the story.
I did. When my adopted mom finalized the adoption, she said, "Well, we've been calling her Debbie for 2 years now. I guess it would be wrong to change her name." So at the adoption decree, she changed my name legally to Deborah Jean. So I went by that. It didn't feel right. It was kind of like a tight sweater. I tried Debbie with an IE, Debbie with a Y, DJ. It never felt right. And, they didn't know that Daphne was my given name. So, I just stuck with Debbie. And then in reunion, when I found out that I was legally named Daphne, I thought, well, that feels a lot better to me. So I reclaimed it legally. But that was just 2 years ago. So there's a lot of time in between that.
I'm just hung up on that you were unadoptable.
I know.
I mean, it just makes me
that's painful.
Throw up. Yeah.
Well, it also said I was looking in my baby book, and there were some notes from my adoptive mother. They thought that I might be mentally retarded when I was dropped off too. And
the social worker that dropped you off, you mean?
My foster care family, who became my family, because I was like, I just laid there. I didn't do anything. But looking at trauma responses now,
right,
it was probably just fawning, which I still to this day do in stressful situations. I'm a total fawn. I don't fight and I don't flee. I just lay down and die. So I really think that's what it was, because pictures of me, a couple months later, it wasn't. I met all the milestones and everything, but that was their initial impression. So they also thought
how little we knew.
Yeah.
What else? I'm sorry.
They also thought I had a heart murmur. So there was a lot of health stuff going on that they were uncertain about. So wasn't.
But you didn't have a heart murmur.
It showed up every once in a while on a physical, but then down the road 3 years ago, I found out I actually had a hole in my heart. But I was fine for 57 years, so.
So I have a side story here. Sarah doesn't even know, and this is your interview, but I have a heart murmur that is now gone away as an adult. But I had it all the way from my childhood, from birth until mid-teens, really strong. And one doctor of mine that I went to that's more holistic here in California said that he thought it was trauma-based.
I was just going to say,
and I never, until recently, I was like, what's he talking about? It's a heart murmur. This guy's loony. And now I'm like, wow.
Wow.
That guy's probably on the same. Anyway, that's a whole. Yeah.
Wow.
It's different than a hole in the heart, but
Well, they kept picking it up as a heart murmur, and but then they wouldn't pick it up at all. And then I had a stroke 3 years ago, and that's when they found the hole. So, but it's been fixed.
Well, going back to, okay, so you're now adopted officially.
Yes.
And what progressed from there?
Okay. So, as I said, there was a biological older son. And then there was me. And then, of course, after I was adopted, she got pregnant. So I'm sandwiched between two biological boys. So, and they are like carbon copies of each other. They are literally carbon copies. They're both engineers. They're both they just have the same traits. They're frugal. I'm not. They're just so methodical. They gesture the same. And here I was stuck in the middle. And they're these tall, thin, curly haired boys, Italian boys. And here I am, this short, kind of chunky, dark straight haired girl in the middle. So we were absolutely nothing alike, nothing whatsoever.
Did you get close to them at all? Did you have a decent relationship with them?
The older one was 5 years older.
Okay.
So that's a good span. So, we didn't really hang in the same circle. But the younger one is 3 years younger, and we were a lot closer. We were together a lot longer. But still to this day, I mean, they are in communication a lot, but, I hear from them at Christmas or if we have family reunion or something, but really we have absolutely nothing in common, nothing, especially since both our parents are dead. So there's really, nothing.
Yeah, I have nothing. I
holding
love
it together.
my brothers, but
yeah,
I don't have any. And I talk to them and you will see them, but like nothing in common. We are so completely different.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's interesting. You're right in the middle too, because
yeah,
that's not usually the case, right? It's usually older, younger. It's like,
like a couple of adoptees and then a biological,
right.
Is usually the case.
No.
How were your adoptive parents? Were you close to them? Were they?
My adoptive father did not want to adopt. He just went along with it to basically shut my mother up, I guess. He said it wasn't natural. You don't take other people's kids.
Well, he's right. As it turns out.
An interesting side story was when he was about 70, he found out he was adopted.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway,
maybe his reaction was some weird thing.
I don't know. But, then they divorced when I was 5. So he didn't want to adopt, but, like I didn't have anything in common with him either because the boys are so much like him. But, it's not like he was a bad father or anything. I saw him, birthday and Christmas, but basically that's about it. I stayed with my mom and she was, did the best she could. She was kind of free spirit for the 70s, very holistic and she was sensitive too. And she never kept anything from me. Like I always had access to my non-identifying information. Like the paper is so worn and folded from me getting it out and looking at it. I knew where it was all the time. And she always said, if you want to look, we will, but there's nothing we could find. So, I used to scan the streets, and because when I was dropped off, they told my foster mother, who became my grandmother, don't go showing her in the neighborhood.
Oh.
And they didn't say anything else. They didn't expound on that at all. So in their mind, there's like, okay, well, her family must be close by.
Huh.
Turns out they were.
And you were still in Maryland you were in Maryland.
Yes. Yeah.
What are the adoption laws there?
Everything is sealed.
Okay.
When I was born, everything was sealed. I think beginning 2000 or 2001, once you're 18, you can get I don't know if they have to have an intermediary to do the contact search and stuff for them. But being in 1962, I'm in that donut hole where I have no legal rights whatsoever to anything. I can't get it. My biological parents can't get it. No one can get my birth certificate or my records. I've written to Baltimore County Social Services. I have petitioned them. I have stacks sitting here on my desk of I get back, stacks of, this is the law and this is why we can't give it to you. So about 6 months ago, I found out that if a Maryland adoptee knows what is on their original birth certificate, they can apply for a photocopy. So, and you have to send in writing, this is who I am now. This is who I was born. These are my biological parents. These are my adoptive parents. I had my adoption decree number. I just photocopied everything I had. And, I know who my biological parents are now, and sent that all to them, but I still haven't gotten it back.
Well, and how crazy, right? I mean, I was telling Sarah, that's the same in Colorado, I happen to know things too, but if you don't, I mean, that's
right.
You may go your whole life and not,
right.
I'm waiting to get my birth certificate now.
Yeah.
So anyway, so
it's been 6 months. I'm still waiting. So who knows?
So when, so you go through your mom says, yes, we can get it for you. Or I'll help you try to find her. And so what happens?
Well, we really had I graduated from high school in 1980. So that was pre-internet. I left home like the day after I graduated. It was not a good situation. There was a stepfather involved. So, from age 10 to 18, things were kind of crappy. So I left home, and then my adoptive mother had to have open heart surgery. I moved to California. That's like how far away I got. And so then she had to have open heart surgery. So I came back home just like a year later, and I was living with my grandmother, and I was going to school, and I wanted my answers. So I was going through phone books, and my grandmother, foster mother, grandmother, always swore that I was the product of one of her cousins. But I mean, I wasn't. But she's like, "Oh, you're from this family." So I'm going through the phone book, and
like she just thought you were. It was
like she just, because she felt I was similar to her, and that I must be related. So she's like, "Well, try calling this person," and I would call people and get nothing. And then I went to the high schools in the area and went through yearbooks, just looking for people who matched some of the information on my non-ID. Like it said that my father was planning to go to dental school, that my mother was in a secretarial course. So I was looking basically, well, back up a little bit. I wanted to find my father. I really didn't have a whole lot of interest in finding my mother, but my father's situation, my whole life had been kind of crappy. And that's what I wanted. That's what I needed, was that I wanted my daddy. If I'm going to be honest, I wanted my daddy. And so that's what I was looking for. And I figured that would be easier to search for anyway, because they don't change their names. So I was going through yearbooks in the local high school looking for guys who were planning to go to dental school. And I found a few, and I found their phone numbers through, the big old phone book in Baltimore. It was like that fat. And I cold called probably 20 or 30 people and gave them my story. And they're like, well, I wish you luck, but no, it's not me.
That's pretty bold. I mean,
what are you going to do?
Yeah. I mean, you get
it's a needle in the
desperate
haystack.
measures, right?
It is.
Desperate times call for desperate measures.
And
Yeah.
my non-ID information is so non-identifying. Like there is nothing about the number of siblings they had. Because that would have been a huge help.
My non-identifying didn't even say that my birth mother was adopted herself.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, they throw you some crumbs, and who knows? I mean, I met so many people who their non-ID was a total fabrication.
Yeah.
So
we've had that too.
But going on what I had, that's what I tried. And the funny thing is I ended up in the dental field. I don't know if I did it because that's what I wanted. But I went to dental assisting school, and I was a dental assistant for 30 years.
Wow.
But, and I'd go work for dentists. I'm like, oh, well, maybe you're my dad.
Yeah. I wonder if that's got to be sort of an interest it must have sparked in you for sure.
I
would
think it probably did.
Yeah.
But I did it for a long time. I loved it. I was good at it. So, but it didn't lead anywhere. And then Maryland came out with Baltimore came out with a mutual registry. It's like $300 or $500 or something. And you send your information in, and they put your name on the list. And if your parents contact them, they will make the connection. So we did that.
That's expensive.
It is.
Yeah. I
And
was going to say, that's not a small
80s.
fee.
Yeah. Back in the 80s when I was, a young family.
That's
with
like
kids,
a couple $1,000s back then.
it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, we did it. Didn't get anywhere.
So they have to write in too, is the
Yes.
and yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, and one of my adoptive aunts worked for Baltimore County Social Services. And I'm like, can't you just sneak in to the file room and just pull my file? But no. No. So, so I was kind of at a standstill. I didn't know what to do. And then in 2015, my adoptive dad died in 2007. And that was just shortly after he found out he was adopted.
How did he find out he was adopted?
Yeah. I was going to ask that.
Oh, wow. He had always said that he had a dream that he was in a car outside of a courthouse, and then mommy and daddy came out of the courthouse. Well, it wasn't a dream. It happened. He was left in the car. They went into the courthouse to get married and came back out. And he was adopted by that man. And I don't know, my brothers know. I don't know exactly how he found out, but he found out. And now on Ancestry, I can see all the records, I can find my adoptive grandmother's marriage records on Ancestry that show, and my father's adoption records. Sheesh. They're all out there now. It's just really, really wild. So she had come over from Sicily and had him shortly after she got here, and then ended up marrying someone else. And he was never to know.
Yeah. Secrets.
Yes.
So how were you close to your adopted father,
No.
even though they were divorced? No,
Not at all.
So it was really your mom was your tie. And
yes. Yeah. No, like I said, our dad, my brothers probably saw him a little more often. Like he coached Little League and stuff for them, but I saw him Christmas, birthday, Easter, maybe Thanksgiving. So holidays is really the only time. We lived, just a couple miles apart, but I didn't go weekends or anything at his house, nothing like that.
So he died in 2007.
2007. And then my mom, who had always been not real healthy, she's the one that needed the open heart surgery and everything. She got really sick in 2015. And she said, for your birthday, I want to give you an Ancestry DNA kit. So my birthday's in March. She got me the kit. I spit in it, set it in right away. But before I got it back, she died.
Oh,
Like the day after she died, I got my results.
wow.
So she didn't get to know anything. So, but
What a gift she gave you that to
it was
kind
a
of
gift.
give
And
you a
she was
freedom, you know.
always really into her genealogy. Like I would go with her to graveyards and make tracings of tombstones and stuff for her records. But that's back when he did it all by hand. She had huge books, but when we were doing that, it's like, but this isn't my family. I mean, it's my family, but it's not my family.
Right. Yeah.
So, she gave me that, and there weren't any close matches though.
Nothing. That's what I was going to say. What was on that ancestry?
Not a whole lot. I think my closest was a third cousin.
And that's not bad. Yeah.
And I knew absolutely nothing about DNA, about searching, about search angels, about Facebook groups, about adoptee support groups. I knew nothing. So
we just learned about search angels. I didn't know that till 3 weeks ago.
So I just sat and I waited there, and I would message people through Ancestry and say, the taboo of don't tell them you're adopted. Well, I didn't know that. So I would hi, I'm adopted and I'm looking for my family. Can you help me? No, can't help you.
By the way, I didn't know that either. And I've done that twice.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I did it.
And Sarah's like, you hear back. I'm like, I think I went about this the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah. They say never, ever say that. Well,
I didn't know that.
So there was this one guy, and he was like a really, really low third cousin. And I wrote to him and he answered me back. He had a huge tree. And he was like just so supportive, and he wanted to find the answer to this too. He stayed with me for 3 years until we figured this out. And I told him my story about I was dropped off and they said, don't go showing her around the neighborhood. And he was like, well, what neighborhood was that? And I told him. He said, well, I had a cousin who lived on that road. And I'm like, no way. He's like, yeah, but I haven't talked to him in a couple of years. And he gave me his name, and I found his address, and I wrote this like 4-page letter on legal paper, and I put it in an envelope, and I never mailed it. And then I don't know why I never mailed it, but I never did. But thank God I didn't, because he wasn't my father anyway. But we just kept in touch. Every time a new thing would pop up, we'd try and see if we could figure it out. And then in 2018, I got a close family match.
It took that long. How many years was that?
3 years.
3 years.
It was like 3 years almost to the day.
That is
I
a
got
long
a
time.
family match. And so I was in my car and I pulled up, because I travel a lot for work. So I think I was sitting in a parking lot having lunch or something. And I pulled up my Ancestry DNA app, and I looked at it and I was like, holy shit, I have a close family match. So I fired off this message to that person. I'm like, I'm just wondering, I forget what I said. I think I learned by then, don't tell them you're adopted. But I think I had said, I was born in 1962 in Baltimore, and I was just wondering if we can figure out how we're related. And she writes back,
that's the key. Like, you don't know.
Yeah. And she writes back, she goes, I know exactly who you are. And I was like, wow. But then she said, but I can't tell you right now. I'm like, great, leave me hanging, because her husband just died. They were selling like 2 houses to move into a farm. And she had to talk to my mother She did tell me she was my aunt. She's like, I have to talk to your mother. There's lots of people I need to make aware of this. And she says, I'll be back. I'll get back to you. And I'm like, okay, how long? This was April. And she's like, oh, probably by June, because we're settling in May. And I'm like, okay, well, I think July rolls around. I hadn't heard from her. I'm like, hello?
Yeah, they don't realize the what it's going through for you.
Yeah.
on
I'm like,
your
you know,
side.
I've already waited 56 years. And I'm like, "Ugh, I'm going to die." And then, so finally I wrote to her. I'm like, can you talk to me yet? And she's like, yeah. And she said, this is your mother and this is your father. And I told your mother on Mother's Day, but she needs time to process. And I told her, don't wait too long, because if she waits too long, I'm not waiting. So that was my mom's sister.
And she knew. So obviously she knew your mom was pregnant when she was young. And
She actually drove my mom to the hospital.
so she was part of it this whole time.
Yes. So my mom was almost 18. My aunt was almost 16. And she hopped in the car when my mother went into labor and drove her down into Baltimore City and stayed with her. Apparently my father showed up at some time and was there too. And when I was born, she was there. Yeah.
And your biological father was there when
He
you were
was
born.
there. Mhm.
And were they dating? Like what did you find out about all this?
What I found out was that while my mom was pregnant, she was kind of hidden away. They had sent her to live with a friend of my father, and that didn't go well. My mother said it was kind of like deliverance, but so she went back home and to her parents' house and stayed there, but she was basically confined to the house. So she didn't really see him a lot during the pregnancy. So,
And did they decide while she was pregnant that she would give you up for adoption?
I don't know exactly who made the final decision. It's kind of a little fuzzy. My mom says that my father's parents did not know, and that they wanted to keep it that way, but her parents said, you may not bring that child home.
Mm.
And so that was how the plan was made. But there is a cousin of my mother's who says, oh, his parents knew, because his mom used to buy your mother all these fancy maternity clothes. And I'm thinking maybe she's thinking of a second pregnancy, you know, my brother's pregnancy, because my mom said, and my aunt said that she spent all the time, you know, in her house. So I don't really know. Because
But
my mother's,
and your aunt's also a child perspective at that point
Right.
too.
yeah,
So it's all these memories of people, you know, you're putting together a puzzle here.
right. And no one really has a clear memory, and my
Yeah.
mother has locked it up so tight that it's, you know, kind of hard to unlock that box.
Yeah.
But apparently, yeah, they were both there. In my paperwork, I never know if she held me. I was told, no, she probably didn't. And my paperwork said that they planned on getting married, but they probably wouldn't, because no one ever does after they give up a child. But she did hold me. They did end up getting married.
Oh, they did get married.
They did, because she got pregnant again.
Ah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I have a brother.
Right away.
He's 19 months younger than me.
Okay.
Before I was
wow.
adopted, she was pregnant again, and they were married. Yeah.
And they got married. So, and they kept that baby,
Yes.
and you were, that's crazy.
Yeah. So that
Same
was really
couple.
hard to wrap.
I
Finding out I had a younger brother, just
Mhm.
19 months younger,
yes.
that was like a real problem to get over. It's like, what
Yeah.
happened? And literally, I was 11 months old the day they got married. What happened in 11 months that changed your life so drastically that you could get married?
Or that
Was
couldn't happen
she
just
able to-
2 months. Yeah.
Was she able
Well,
to tell you that
No.
later? Like,
She just said that she was, not quite 18, and she had no support from her family. They said, no, you can't bring the child home. I think that had things that I found in my research, I think that had they told my father's parents, I think things would have been different, because my research has found that my father's father was adopted by his stepfather. So in 1920, my paternal grandfather was born to an unwed mother who kept him. And then 2 years later, she married a guy who adopted him. I don't know if he ever knew he was adopted. I don't know if my biological father knows that his father was adopted. I don't know, but I just have this feeling that had my paternal great grandparents known, and they were alive at that time, Edna and Ambler, had they known that they would have been receptive to, keeping me in the family, because that's what they did, and that's the guy who had been helping me since 2015. He said, oh yeah, because he ended up being my father's cousin.
Oh, he was your father's cousin.
Yeah,
So he
ends up being a half cousin because my grandfather was only half related to him. But yeah, he said they definitely, no one knows for sure, but he said, I don't see that you would have been placed for adoption.
It wasn't in their way to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's sad. That's just
Really sad.
So twisted. It ends up that my paternal grandparents lived less than a mile from my adoptive grandparents. Like where I was dropped off for foster care was less than a mile from my.
Hence why they said don't walk around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
don't show her off around the neighborhood.
Little neighborhood called Stoneley in Towson, Maryland. And
Towson, yeah.
And they lived in Stoneley. So I literally went to elementary school 2 blocks from their home.
It's just the sliding doors thing of it just always blows my mind.
Yeah.
Every story, but hearing it from you, it's like, gosh, it just makes me so reflective about it. And where do you stand with it all now?
Yeah. So, right. So you were saying like you find your aunt in 2015 and then she tells your mom and then you have a reunion with your mom.
Well, okay. So she told my mom in 2018 on Mother's Day, and I didn't hear anything from her. And so it got to be like August, and my aunt was like, you know what? She's had enough time to deal with this. I'm not waiting any longer. Now, had I known the family dynamics, I might not have pursued that. But so she said, do you want to come down? She lives in Maryland. And so I drove down and I met her at her house. And it was just the weirdest thing because I knew her voice.
You did.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because they spent so much time together when my mother was pregnant, but like an electric shock went through me when I opened the door and she said, I've been waiting to meet you my entire adult life.
It's just a voice you knew.
Yeah, it was just surreal, very surreal. And so my husband was a godsend because I went down. It's about 2.5 hours from our home. And I went down every weekend to spend time with them for months, just to hear stories and get to know them. And, he just let me do what I needed to do.
And
so
when you say them, this is just your biological aunt and your uncle
it's my biological aunt and her daughter and granddaughter. They all live together on this farm with their 3 little houses in a row that they run together.
But you're not getting to know your biological mom in this time.
Not yet. Mm-hmm. No. So it was just the emotional overload was just and I can't even put really words to it. And I remember I was driving for work and just like, I could not stop crying. I could not. And, and I was in like Allentown, Pennsylvania, of all places. It's like the middle of nowhere. And I texted her and I'm like, I don't know what to do with all this. She said, well, why don't you write a letter to your mom? I'm like, well,
And were your parents still married at this point?
No, they
Okay.
had divorced a couple years after. They were only married a couple years.
Okay.
I don't know exactly the time frame, but they had 2 boys. And then they were divorced. So
So you have 2 full siblings.
yes. Yes. So I'm like, well, what am I going to say in this letter? And she said, well, why don't you tell her what it would mean to her, to you, what it would mean to you to meet her. So I went to my hotel room and I wrote a letter and I sent it to my aunt and I said, can you deliver this for me? And she delivered it to her, and it took her, this was August. I think it was the end of September when she texted me. And then she said, this is your mother. Can we meet soon? And I was like, I like screamed in my hotel room.
Yeah.
And so I think we met, that was the end of September. We met October 9th for lunch. And we spent just 4 hours just talking. And I kept wanting to touch her. It's like I wanted to make sure she was real.
And how did she act, towards you during that?
She was wonderful. She was very welcoming, and the hug was just like unbelievable. I still try and remember that feeling of like wholeness, of being where you're supposed to be. And yeah, we like went, they were serving dinner by the time we left the restaurant. God bless the waiter, because they keep coming back and say, can we help you? Nope, just talking. And it was great. And she lives in Virginia, and since I travel, I would stay at her house, and I went for Christmases, and I didn't go for Thanksgiving because we do Thanksgiving at my house, but Christmas and summer.
So it's been a happy reunion.
Well,
This happens.
it is so hard. I think it's more humane to do what my father did and just totally deny me than to accept me and then reject me. It's just so painful. So about once a year or so over the last 3 years, she would just disappear. No contact whatsoever. Last year we were on vacation together and she just disappeared.
By disappear, you just mean she just doesn't
respond to anything.
And has she told you why, or does she say anything about it?
She'll just show up and she'll just like text me, and then I'm a big sucker and I like say okay.
Fall back in. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think I've reached a point where I can't do that anymore.
What about your brothers?
That's how yeah.
I mean, she doesn't do that to them?
No.
And are you close to them? Do you have a relationship with them?
I have a relationship with them. I mean, we're still, we're strangers trying to get to know each other, and we live in different states, but, and they don't understand, and they say, well, we don't hear from mom for weeks at a time. And like, yeah, but it doesn't go 6 months, and if you call, she would answer the phone. So no, she doesn't call. She doesn't answer my calls. She doesn't answer my texts. So
yeah, they don't get it. They're trying to balance like who their mom is and getting to know you. And
yeah,
I can see that's.
And I talked to one today, and he's like, because on Mother's Day, I did send her a Mother's Day card and a small gift. And so I had texted my one brother. I said, if you see mom, just tell her I said, happy Mother's Day. And I got back, I did. And I talked to the other one today, and he's like, you can call her? I said, no, I can't because she doesn't answer my phone calls. Well, yes, she will. No, she won't. She won't answer. I said, I've reached the point where I just can't keep doing this. My mental health, I just can't keep doing this. I said, so, just do you still want to maintain a relationship if she doesn't? He's like, well, yeah, you're my sister.
Oh,
So, who knows where it'll go, but
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry too. I wish she would at least, I mean, clearly she can't deal or talk about it. So, but maybe hopefully she will at some point.
But I don't know that I can do it anymore. It's been like 4 times, I think 4 or 5 times that she's just, and once was at Christmas. Oh my God, I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very painful, the expectation, and then just,
it's just,
and to let you in at the beginning.
and then to just show back up and be like, oh, well, there's nothing wrong, and come on down. And, she had like a bedroom for me and my husband, he spent time down there as well. So it's just so weird and hurtful.
Yeah, just the not knowing
too
is very, and so is the boys talk to their father, to your father?
No.
They so he just kind of checked out from everybody.
I don't know the story because they just literally hate him, say that he left them to starve. But I don't know the story, what went on between my mother and my father. I don't know. There's always, 3 sides to every story, his side, her side, and the truth.
Yeah.
So, and not having had the chance to meet him, I don't know. Now, I did find a paternal half sister. We share the same father. And he kind of wrote her off as well. So, I tend to think that he's not capable. He has one child that he raised. Actually lives out there in California, went to Pepperdine.
Jeez. We'll have to exchange names later.
So
so he raised a child later than your mom's relationship.
Yes, this half brother is younger than my oldest child.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So he's 34 and my oldest is 38.
Yeah.
So he did raise him. And I called him once. I wrote him a letter as well. He didn't answer. He's never answered. I called him one day. And I said, this is Daphne. He goes, I know who you are. And I'm sorry, but I can't talk to you.
And that was that.
And that was it. And he just kept saying, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you. So I think there's a wife involved that he, she's a lot younger than him. He has a lot of money. I think that maybe she just doesn't want anything to interfere with his money.
Well, so. she may not even know he has other children.
Think that she does because I sent a letter there once. And my sister had sent something there before too. So I think that she knows, but I think that she won't allow it. Now he's 78 years old. It's like, put your big boy pants on. These are your children.
Exactly.
So it's
and several children, there's lots of children hurting here.
Yeah. So, I just think that he'll say that it's not his choice, but ultimately, you're an adult. It is your choice.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, you weren't kidding that there were lots of
I told you
there were twists.
I feel like we haven't heard
linear thing.
I feel like we haven't heard the end of it. So we'll have to reconnect with you as time goes on to see what the end of the story is or the evolving of the story.
Yeah. It's just, it's so jumbled and there's nothing linear whatsoever in my story. And I'm like, where do I start?
Yeah.
I have one question for you. Does your biological aunt, do you still keep up with her, your mom's?
Yes.
And what does she say about that, your biological mom? Or does she not conjecture? Or
She she tries not to get in the middle, which
Yeah.
that's probably good with the family dynamics. And I say the family dynamics because it's strained, you know.
Yeah.
Their relationship can be strained. I mean, they love each other, they're siblings, but it can be strained.
So she's just trying to keep the peace in her journey too.
Yeah, like I just got back from vacation with her daughter and granddaughter. So my cousin and first cousin. Yeah, we went on vacation to Kentucky last week. When I travel for work, I stop by and spend the night. Yeah, we're probably down there at least once a month. So yeah,
I'm glad you have that.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
That's the happy note of this.
It is. Like they had along with my husband, they planned a 60th surprise birthday party for me down there. And they're just, yeah, my husband's family came and his stepmom found out she was adopted at age 60.
Sheesh.
That's wow. You have
Oh
a
my
lot of
gosh.
these in there.
It's insane. And so she came and she said, I understand things are hard with your mom, but just hold on to what you have.
Yeah.
So, so I'm very thankful for those biological people that are in my life that want me in their life.
Yeah, of course. I think they're loving having you in their life, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, something's with your mom. That's something she needs to have help with, or, we hear this often, by the way. We hear this often.
Oh, I know. I definitely know I'm not the only person.
Yeah.
And, it can come and go. And, sometimes she was very open and sometimes she was like, oh, I don't remember. She still has the prom dress that she wore to prom with my father.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, so she showed me that, and when we were alone together, she would talk about the good times with him and different things that they did. And, so,
It's a lot
I
of
know
pain,
now
it sounds
Yeah,
like.
I was going to say there's a
It's
lot of bottled up
painful.
pain there.
Yeah.
But, hey, they loved each other when I was created, probably in the backseat of a car for all I know.
Right.
we all might be from that situation.
I think I was like on Rockaway Beach, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. You'll maybe a blanket.
Blanket. Well, Daphne, thank you so much. And will you please keep us posted on what happens going forward? And
yeah. Sorry it's so jumbled.
No, don't
Oh my gosh,
apologize.
it's
It's so
not
interesting.
jumbled. Yeah.
It's just so all over the place. So thank you, ladies.
Thank you. And we'll see you soon.
Time
yeah, thank you so much.
Keep doing what you're doing.
We
Thank
will.
you.
And thank you for being
Thanks for
part
sticking
of
with
this.
us on the journey.
Yeah. Thanks for staying.
Okay, we'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
And
I can't find the thing to end.